whole area.
Yes. Yes, it really fits us, I think, this kind of trendy kind of...
I heard Greenpeace is not far from here.
Is that so? I
That's
don't
what
know.
my friend told me.
Wouldn't surprise me.
They have their
All
shops
right.
around.
Good evening, everyone. Because we're live streaming, I'll explain a little bit in a while. Can everyone just do an applause one more time? I got applause, whistles, great, amazing. We've already started on a good note. A couple of weeks ago, I was with my daughter. We were walking in the forest near Twente, and I had her in this pouch in front of me, and we were in this kind of forest area, and she fell asleep, like sound asleep, exactly where she wants to be. And I noticed that whenever she's in nature, she just comes at ease and at peace. For the first 12 years of my life, I lived practically on the Muntplein here in Amsterdam. Who knows where the Muntplein is? Put your hand up. Okay, really center, right? I learned how to bike when the shutters of the Kalverstraat would go down, and I was like a bowling ball trying to learn how to bike, hitting the shutters. And that's my first 12 years, and I've been living in the city for pretty much all my life. Now, if I think about the other day, I also took her biking around the city, and I had her in the same pouch. And I noticed that she was very restless. She couldn't really get to sleep that easily. And the noise, the sounds, the smells, the air, the energy around it, it's different. And especially when we just had a heat wave, I also noticed that that also had an impact on her. And I think the future that I want for her is that she can be more at peace and more in connection with nature. Today, if you don't know, is also World Rainforest Day. Currently, we are live streaming together with many people around the world, with 150 people here in this room. And we are all celebrating today, but it's also a day where we need to sit down and remember why do we need to actually give this special day a moment to become more conscious of what's happening around the world. This is a defining moment today, and I'll tell you why, because it's for the Amazon protection. It is the uniting of the indigenous and the non-indigenous. Today's work is born from many years from the Sinchi Foundation and the Forest Forces, and it's the public face to bridge these worlds together. The schedule that we have for tonight is, you'll hear from Thomas Wheeler, the Executive Director, to presentation of what Treesistance is, as you can see the definition on the slide, the state of the world, the strategic pillars, and what you can do. We're also going to have a question and answer with the Chief of the Maro Indigenous Territory, the head of the Forest Guardians Program, Chief Dada Barari, and Tim Boekhout van Solange, who is the Treesistance Head of Forest Crime Prevention. My name is Solman Sana. I am your host and moderator for tonight. I will guide the night throughout the evening, so a bit of a Sherpa through the evening, and I'm an advisory board member of Treesistance. But first up, though, to tell you a little bit more about Treesistance, we have I think someone just dropped the poster. It's okay, you can grab it in a bit. I'll talk a little bit about the poster in the end as well. So I got to know Tom a couple of years ago, and last year we were having lunch in a place here in Amsterdam, and he told me, hey, I'm working on this movement, and I'm about to go to South America, and I'm going to do some traveling around there. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. Tell me more when more information comes. And then last year we got more in touch about this. And most of all, what I heard him saying with the passion that he has on what we need to do on a global scale. But I'm going to let him share more about that. To start up this evening, ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Wheeler.
Thank you, Salman, for that lovely introduction. So first, I just want to say how special it is to be with you all tonight, both everyone present in the room, my little girl Tala, who's on the front row, and everyone who's joining online all over the world via our YouTube channel or directly via the summit of World Rainforest Day. For the next 20 minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Treesistance, a bit about why it exists, a bit about what we do and how we do it, and a bit about why this is something everybody can get involved in. Well, as you can see on the slide behind me, anyone who refuses to comply with a system that exploits nature. So to start off tonight, I'm actually going to start with a quote. which I personally love, I think is incredibly profound. This comes from Dr. King, who obviously is a man of many fantastic quotes, but this is one not everybody knows. We have guided missiles and misguided men. And just to let that sit for a minute, it really makes you think about knowledge without wisdom can be a very dangerous thing. This is not to say that technology is bad, because it's clearly not. It's improved our lives in many, many ways. But when it's used in the wrong way and in the path we're following at the moment, is it the right one? On this note, I want to share this, which I think is a very powerful kind of comparison. If we look at the world at 4.6 billion years old, and we scale that down to 46 years, considering we as humans have only been here for 4 hours, and our industrial revolution has started just 1 minute ago, we've destroyed 50% of the world's forests. And I think that speaks volumes. And you know, I find this quite amusing if it wasn't so sad, but this was from a few years ago. Some people might remember Elon Musk offering 100 million to anyone who could find a way to pull out carbon from the atmosphere. Well, as Ken Tremendous says, this is a tree, right? This is literally what trees do. And we have to find ourselves is how have we got ourselves in this problem? How have we got ourselves in this situation? Is it the fact that we've lost connection? How we forgot that we are part of this amazing ecosystem, which is perfect as it is? Do we forget that we are not separate from nature, that we are, in fact, part of nature? And this is something I came across just a few days ago. This is 6 days old, published by NASA. I mean, I think this is such an incredibly powerful image or video. If we look in the global north, the huge amount of pollution which is being created, and we can see, not so clearly here, but this flashing green, this beacon, which is the Amazon, trying to keep the planet healthy. Often it's said that the Amazon are the lungs of the earth. You know, in my opinion, it's actually the immune system. The Amazon is there to protect the planet's health, like the body of a person. And if we compromise the immune system, we all know what's going to happen. But we're going to turn the page here. The reason we're here today is to talk about Treesistance, and there's one message I want everybody to keep within them as we talk this evening, and that is you don't have to be in the forest to join the fight. So, to give you a brief description of Treesistance and our mission or vision statement, Treesistance is a movement. It's a resistance movement. Like any resistance through history, it needs us to work together. It needs us to stand up for the forests. And it's an impact blueprint which is centered on the protection of primary rainforest. And this is very important, that it's protection through prevention. So this is not after the fact. This is not about replanting. This is about defending the pristine nature which exists on this planet and is the most effective, well, the home to most biodiversity, the largest store of carbon, and much more. And guess what? This is, of course, on indigenous lands. So everything we do is essential that is led by the indigenous people themselves, but everything in collaboration. So integrating science, integrating criminology, technology, but using indigenous wisdom. And as I think Einstein was attributed to said, I'm not sure it was him, but we can't get out of these problems by using the same way of thinking. So we have to create new disruptive models. This doesn't mean the most expensive. In actual fact, it's usually the opposite. It's about finding the best solution. And again, this happens through working in transparency and collaboration. And finally, where do we want to get to? Well, again, like any resistance movement, we need to shift attitudes, first of all. We need to change our way of interacting with the natural world, how we perceive ourselves and each other. And only then will we be able to achieve the systemic change which our planet so badly needs. We're now going to take just a quick step back, because why the Amazon? Well, I think probably everybody in this room and everyone watching online knows it's the largest rainforest in the world. But the scale of it is really quite something to comprehend. 6.7 million square kilometers. Very hard to comprehend. Western Europe is 2.27 million kilometers. 400 billion trees releasing 20 billion tons of water every day, which of course is affecting weather patterns all over the world. It's affecting food, it's affecting water, and not to mention carbon. The huge amount of carbon which is stored in the old growth and the primary rainforest. This is contributing to over a quarter of the global forest total and is essential for our survival in the short-term carbon cycle. And before we sort of look into the future, I think it is still important we understand where we sit today or where we stand today. We're losing at the moment around 5 football fields of Amazonian trees every minute. Over the Bolsonaro reign, there was an area of over 45,000 square kilometers of primary rainforest destroyed. Again, to put this into context, the Netherlands, where we are today, is 41,000 square kilometers. Again, this is not sustainable. And unfortunately, in 2021, scientists released a paper showing that large areas of the Amazon are now emitting more carbon than they're actually able to take in. So we really are at the tipping point, and it's even more important for us to stand with the indigenous people to protect the primary rainforest which is left. And yes, it is a tipping point. People argue whether we're past the tipping point, but if we do not do something now, we will fall into a global eco-disaster. This is not a problem for the indigenous people. This is not a problem for the global south. This is a problem for all of us, and for all of us who care what state of the planet we're going to leave it for future generations. And I'm sure many of you know this, but what are the causes of this? Of course, it's connected to our behavior here. We have cattle ranching, soy farming, logging, gold mining, and mining of other materials. The only mention I'll give here, this is not the soy which goes in your meat replacements. This is specifically soy which is used to feed the agricultural industry. So to actually feed the animals, to make them grow faster and bigger here in Europe and in other parts of the world. But there is a clear solution. 80% of the world's biodiversity is protected by indigenous people. This is probably something everyone has maybe heard at some point, but when you consider that indigenous people only live on 20% of the world's land surface, I think it becomes even more meaningful. If we switch this around, on the remaining 80% of land, only 20% of biodiversity still exists. I think this speaks for itself. And this is something which I think is really a great example for you to visualize what's happening at the moment. Where you see the IT and the PA, this stands for Indigenous Territory or Protected Area. And we can see 2 graphs where you can very clearly see that when we have an indigenous territory in a protected area, there is very little deforestation and land transformation. While outside, we see a very different story. And if we move to the map, we see this wave of destruction coming from the south, going to the north, going to the northwest, deeper and deeper into the Amazon. Now, this is the last line of resistance. This green, where the red is meeting now, is the last organized indigenous resistance. And this is why we've invited you all today to help understand this and realize that we have to now work together. This line, it's important for many reasons, but I can't emphasize enough the fact that behind it lies the more vulnerable, let's say, hinterlands. So communities are much more sparsely populated, uncontacted tribes, smaller communities, much further separated, who really have little to no chance of protecting their territories. So this is the moment. So I guess it all should sound very, very simple. Like, we know that indigenous people are the best protectors of nature. We know what's happening in the Amazon. What the hell's going wrong? Well, trillions and trillions have been spent over the last decade on nature preservation and protection, but I can tell you 0.74% in the last decade has gone to supporting indigenous people's rights and forest management. That's surprising in itself, but even more shocking is 17% of these funds actually went to projects involving an actual indigenous organization, which is quite frankly baffling. So 0.13% of total funding. So this is where the Treesistance comes in. First and foremost, we're about distributing resources directly to the indigenous people on the front lines. That is first and foremost why we were created, why Forest Forces and Sinchi were created, and our main mission is to show and provide an opportunity for people to directly partner. As mentioned at the beginning, it's about implementing disruptive models that can stop forest crime. We need to have a revolution. And we have to have big picture thinking. These are big problems, and we can't think small scale. Everything which we do has larger, scalable intentions, which you'll hear about a bit later. And again, I think it's incredibly important is we need to be the facilitator to enable direct collaboration. This is why Kasiki Dada is with us today. This is why we believe it's so important, so you get to meet the people who are on the front lines and hear in their own voices what they're doing and what their needs are. Now, the work we do is split into 4 strategic pillars. This is really the foundation of everything we do: access to justice. Before anything, there has to be rule of law. There has to be human rights and land rights. And this is really the base of all the work which we try to achieve. And we will be hearing from both Tim, as we heard from Salman, and Kasiki Dada later about this work. In short, this means demarcation, proving the land is indigenous territory. It's about patrol, it's about real-time protection of the territories, and it's about having relationships with trusted authorities and the justice system to make sure the relevant action or necessary action is taken. As it stands today, we have, I believe, 5 Forest Guardian teams operating, and by the end of this year, we'll have 9 Forest Guardians units in different indigenous territories, protecting over 1,500 square kilometers. And as you can see, we have very ambitious plans for the coming years. By the end of 2025, over 5,000 square kilometers. And it's not going to stop here. This is just the beginning. At the moment, we're operating in Pará. You'll hear later about our plans to expand in the Brazilian Amazon, but we have intentions to roll this out across the rest of the Amazon, but also the other tropical rainforests of the world. And I think this is just a really interesting and powerful quote. You know, we used to fight with a bow and arrow, but now the camera, the GPS camera, is our new weapon. And again, you'll get to hear more about this shortly. Now, this is really the foundation, but it is important to say access to justice or forest guardians on their own is not the complete solution. Again, we need to think and see this in a holistic sense. Communications are essential. Of course, for the forest guardians, they need the ability to relay, they need the ability to be in contact with the authorities when they come across illegal activity. But not only this, just general human rights, that you need access to healthcare, access to education, security and trade, you know, to have encrypted messaging. All of these are essential for the communities to thrive. We also need to have renewable energy. I think we need to stop the reliance globally, but this is incredibly important within the communities. Most currently have to survive or rely upon gasoline and diesel. And this is incredibly expensive. It's actually, in many places in the interior, more expensive than it is here. So you will find communities using all of their funds and all of their money just to charge, to have basic lighting, for logistics. And this keeps the communities in a cycle of poverty. And this, of course, creates an environment where exploitation can happen. And finally, economic development. You know, this is where I think most people tend to go wrong, is they jump straight to economic development without the other pillars in place. Of course, it's where we need to get to. This is essential that we have to prove that the forest is worth more standing than it is cut down. But we have to have the other pillars in place to try and develop economic projects without rule of law, access to justice, without communications, and without renewable energy and reliable energy sources. These are destined to fail or cause further problems down the line. Now, just coming to the end, I just want to give a very quick mention or special mention to some of our partners. You know, there's this African proverb, which I'm sure everybody's heard. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And this is very true. We believe the only way we can make the impact needed is by working and collaborating with brands, with corporate companies, strategic philanthropy. And I'd love to, I'm sure everyone's noticed this beautiful bike we have to the left of the stage. This is one of our first brand partnerships with Cake, a Swedish company who are developing at the moment the first zero-emission free motorbike. And they have donated bikes for the Forest Guardians, which I'm sure you recognize is fantastic for renewable energy, but also these are silent. So these Forest Guardians, when they're on patrol, you have to imagine it's a very dangerous situation. They're often encountering people who are heavily armed. So these bikes enable the communities to travel in silence, in stealth, for their own protection. So we're very proud of this collaboration, also working with Goal Zero and We Future on this project. We also have some fantastic funding partners and collaborators in Wilder Gansen, IR Global, and Green Choice. And I want to give a special shout out to Wyden and Kennedy. We have a couple of their guys with us today who have really been incredible partners. They're a wonderful advertising agency and really been with us from the start to help us develop this and roll out this story. And finally, some of you may recognize the logo in the top left, Puberty Media, which is really a beautiful story in itself. It's ran by 23-year-old Kit Chilvers, and they have 100 million Gen Z and millennial followers on their channels. And when I asked him, as the media of the future, what lies behind it? And it will probably surprise you. He said, wholesomeness. And it gives me great joy and faith that we have got a possibility and a chance to make a difference when we have partners like this who will work with us to amplify these stories and give the resources to the Indigenous people on the front lines. So again, we're going to talk a bit later about what you can do, but we would love everybody who's listening to join the movement, and we look forward to talking much more with you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, one second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I'll stay back to my seat. Yes, so now, just before we go to the film, actually, we're going to hear from my esteemed colleague, Jesse van der Hoor, a bit about our storytelling.
Yeah? Okay. Awesome. Hi. Sorry. I'm not as well prepared as Tom is, unfortunately, so I'll be reading here and there a little bit. So Tom has already told you a little bit about the Treesistance, how it is Indigenous-led, how the decisions impacting Indigenous communities are made by Indigenous communities. This is called the right to self-determination, and it is described in the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. This is also the principle on which our foundation, our organization is founded. My name is Jesse, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about storytelling and self-determination. I am a storytelling. Storytelling makes me feel alive. I come from a family of storytellers, and hearing their stories helps me understand who I am. In the last few days, I was at this film conference / market, and I was surrounded by storytellers and salespeople who are maybe the best storytellers. And on the train back today, I was thinking, who isn't a storyteller? Storytelling is at the heart of being human. It defines who we are through how we choose to tell our experiences and what they mean to us. Stories make up our cultural fabric through myths, traditions, religion, and through the frameworks through which we tell our histories. Storytelling gives us societal rules. It allows us to understand each other. And telling one story often signifies the beginning of a relationship based on care and respect. It allows us to connect and form attachments. Self-determination starts and ends with storytelling, telling your own story and being heard in doing so. So what happens when your story is told for you? The denial of one's voice, one's own perspective, is the denial of one's being. Telling someone's story for them is oppression, and over time leads to the destruction of culture. And we need cultural. We need cultural diversity because it is the same thing for humanity as biodiversity is to nature. An even deeper cult means to worship, and Ure means earth. One's culture is the blueprint of taking care of one's nature. Without the culture, nature vanishes, and without the nature, culture vanishes. So today, we are all more connected than ever, And in theory, that means that we have access to one's story, and we should be able to hear each other's stories told in our own voices. But in reality, there's a small group of people with the privilege of telling and framing and interpreting stories. Telling one's story and being heard in doing so is far from self-evident today. The Sinti Foundation has a long-standing record of supporting and creating space for indigenous artists and storytellers. And I'm very grateful and proud today to tell you about the initiatives that are part of the Treesistance. We have founded the Indigenous Youth Media Team, who receive equipment, training, and budget to create the media that is part of our global campaigning. We are launching storytelling platform Tales of Resistance in close collaboration with our head of storytelling, Vivi Borari. And we are working in close collaboration with Kasiki Dada on a film about his life and vision in protecting the forest. Right now, we want to give you a little taste of Amazonian stories with the film Curupira, Mother of the Forest, by Lea Hein, who created the film in close collaboration with Dada and Borari. I thank you for your attention.
Para mim, a floresta não deixa de ser uma casa. Uma casa bonita, uma casa grande. Nela eu tenho meus seres invisíveis e meus seres visíveis.
Curupira é um ser invisível, né, que a gente não consegue ver. Só consegue escutar os sons que ela transmite pra gente. Ela subiu, né? Os toques nos paus.
Tem gente que chama de mãezinha, tem gente que chama de vovó e tem gente que chama de curupira. Ela é capaz de se transformar em qualquer animal, né, para chamar a atenção da gente. Então ela se transforma, em qualquer momento ela se transforma, a curupira.
A força dela é imensa. E a gente percebe, a gente que convive com a natureza, a gente sabe que ela tem um poder imenso.
Ela é a mãe da natureza. Ela que protege os nossos caçadores. Ela que protege os nossos animais. E não é muito bom, não, a gente duvidar com ela, porque assim ela judia e ela mata, porque a gente está duvidando com ela.
Sempre estou em sintonia com ela, porque nós somos Curupira e o pajé.
Ela não é apenas uma fumaça. Quando nós fumamos, nós estamos entrando em contato com a natureza.
Eu vou contar uma história que aconteceu aqui no Aruan. Um rapaz que morava aí. E ele era daqueles rapazes também que não gostava de abusar das coisas que ele não via. Sei que por até que era o apelido dele. Esse dia ele foi na espera, era de viado. Aí ele chegou lá, ficou lá até aquelas horas. Daí a curupira começou a assobiar pro lado dele. E olha, curupira, uma coisa eu vou te dizer, se tu for homem, vai-te embora. Mas se tu for mulher, vem deitar comigo. E tu vai ver o que vai acontecer.
Viu a fruteira lá, subiu, armou a rede dele lá. Quando escureceu, ela subiu. Aí ficou escutando. Minutos depois ele sentiu aquilo no pau, né? Quando ele olha assim, aquela mulherona bonita, bonitona aquela mulher, deitou com ele e já foi abraçando ele abraçando ela, aquela coisa toda. Aí ele mantive relação com ela, relação sexual com ela. Quando ele inteirou um mês, a barriga dele começou a crescer. Aí ele pegou e disse, rapaz, não sei o que está acontecendo comigo. Ele foi com o pajé. O pajé veio lá, defumou ele e tal. Aí começou a mexer na barriga dele. Dava aquelas pontadas, né? Aí o pajé veio e disse, olha, você tá grávida.
Aí levou para a cidade, mandou bater a atração, era um filho. Só que não era um filho de gente, era um viado que estava dentro dele.
Ela pôs um viadinho na barriga dele.
Estava crescendo. Então nunca mais nós tivemos notícia dessa pessoa.
é história porque é contada por outro, mas isso é história real, que aconteceu, que acontece, né? Então, e assim, a região toda, todo mundo passou a saber disso. Aí a população começaram a acreditar. Ah, então nós temos que respeitar mais. Quem faz mal ao ser humano é a gente mesmo. A gente que é muito tolo. A gente brinca muito com a floresta, né? Quando a gente brinca muito com a floresta, que não é do consentimento dela, ela passa a chamar nossa atenção para ir fazer algo. Eu quero também deixar essa mensagem para todos e todas. Pense bem na hora de estar financiando esses grandes projetos para a Amazônia, plantio de soja, plantio de milho, plantio de arroz. Então pense bem, porque você está acabando com vidas.
In Brasilia, thousands of people protest against a bill supported by the powerful farm lobby that would allow the exploitation of protected indigenous lands.
Em vez de estar financiando os próprios extrativistas que estão na floresta nacional, financia quem protege, financia o índio, os indígenas. É nós que está com o pé no chão, é nós quem faz vigilância, é nós quem protege.
Eu acredito que a nossa luta assim ajuda muito a Curupira Negra. Quando a gente denuncia todo as invasões, as grilagens, ou então tudo de ruim que acontece né, nos territórios indígenas, de invasão, né, eu acredito que a gente está protegendo, porque a gente está denunciando uma coisa que protegendo a morada dela, né, para que ela exista e para que a gente exista também. Então eu acredito que com certeza a nossa luta ajuda muito a manter ainda a Curupira viva também, né, que se digamos morre a floresta, morremos todos nós juntos, né, não só nós como os seres invisíveis também.
Se a gente não nos unir, não proteger cada vez mais, esse ambiente ele vai desaparecer, né? Nós não queremos que esse ambiente desapareça, nós queremos que ele continue a ser esse ambiente que venha trazer, que essa biodiversidade ela não possa acabar, né? Mas sim crescer, né? Então, esse é o fator principal do papel do Arapiuns, do povo Arapiuns, do povo Borari, juntamente com a própria Curupira, é defender de fato essa biodiversidade. É essa a mensagem que ela passa, né? Me respeite que eu respeito vocês, né? Então,
partiu pro norte pra poder salvar a aldeia de Amanaé do povo de Abati. Meu cocá, minha terra que eu nunca mais vi. Curupira e curumim não podem mais brincar ali. Como pode um índio sem a mata pra poder caçar? E a magia de um igarapé para sobreviver, em harmonia com a natureza que só faz sorrir. Mas veja, a chuva é o céu que chora feito a Manassi. Índio quer viver no mato, homem branco não consegue compreender que índio é a natureza e a natureza é o seu viver. Índio quer viver no mato, homem branco não consegue compreender que índio é a natureza e a natureza é o seu viver. Lalaiá, 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 lalaiá.
All right. Just checking how everyone is after watching that. Good. Good. Okay, we've got one good. How about the rest of you? Inspired. Okay. Anybody else? Afraid. Okay. Any other first responses for those that feel? Sorry? You want to go there? All right. Okay. So here's if we hear about Curupira and the mother of the forest, whatever the story or the myths or the traditions that the indigenous people there live by, I definitely know the lesson not to disrespect nature. But it also kind of makes us think about what is it that we should actually be paying attention to and which people should we be supporting. I mean, just hearing that indigenous people protect 80% of the world's biodiversity and only 0.13 of the funding goes to the indigenous people. If I just pause on that for a moment, I go, holy shit. But that's just me. And thinking that we're trying to actually have a positive impact there as well. I just want to, before we go to the next part, I want to firstly say everyone here, all of you, those that arrived early and a little bit later in this very warm room that we've created to get that feeling of the Amazon here. No, we didn't. Sorry about the warmth. But I just want to say thank you for being here because you're taking time and effort on your Thursday evening to actually support this cause. We have partners here. We have people that came as an invitation, and I think that's just important to stand still. There's I think a very interesting group of people here that are all here for a particular purpose. So if you get a chance afterwards and during the drinks, I'm going to ask you all to just bump into someone that you do not know and just ask them, hey, why are you here tonight? Just want you to do that. Keep that in mind because everyone's here for a different reason and also the same reason. Maybe two things. We are live streaming right now from the Treesistance YouTube channel. So if there's anybody that you ever want to share that's like, hey, you really need to know what happened that evening, it's going to come on the Treesistance YouTube channel. So all of this is being recorded. And please check the social media because we are sharing posts and stuff over there. So just wanted to do that little shout out so that you all know. We're going to go to the next part because now I'm going to invite the chief, of course, of the Maro Indigenous Territory, Kasiki Dada. So if I can invite you onto the stage or the floor. And the chief's going to be accompanied by Philip. There he is, Philip. Translator Philip. And then we have, of course, Tim Boekhout van Solange, the Treesistance Head of Forest Crime Prevention. They're here today to share a little bit more about the work they do on the ground to protect the rainforest. I've got a couple of questions that I'm going to ask them. We've got where's that throw box, that pink throw box? I'm going to grab it in a bit. If you have questions, we're going to throw it to people in the crowd as well. Don't worry, it's soft, it won't hurt you. But if you think there's something you want to ask, then let us know. But first, I'm going to ask Chief Dada, in your own words, can you tell us a little bit more about the Maro Forest Guardians? I think the mics need to go on. Are they on? Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, they're very on.
Boa noite a todos e a todas.
Good evening to everyone.
Muito obrigado por vocês estarem aqui, né? Ouvir, sair da sua casa, deixar sua esposa, seu esposo, seu filho e vir aqui nos ouvir. Então, muito obrigado por isso.
Thank you very much, everybody, to being here. To leave your house, to sometimes leave your family behind and make this effort to be here with us tonight.
Então, o nosso grupo de vigilante é um grupo que trabalha a prevenção, educação e monitoramento, mas em primeiro lugar, prevenção e educação.
Our surveillance team, it works on prevention, monitoring and education. But first of all, prevention.
E nós esse nosso trabalho que nós fazemos é um trabalho que a gente faz indo na base, indo onde está o problema, conversando com o agressor e sensibilizando a ele, mostrando para ele que ele está irregular. Então é um trabalho de paz.
We do base groundwork trying to identify the perpetrators, the aggressors, but always in a peaceful mode. So it's above all a peaceful work.
Esse trabalho de paz, a gente faz isso por conta que nós aprendemos a ler, escrever e interpretar. Então nós fazemos a aplicação da lei.
We do it by learning how to read, write, and interpret it. So what we basically do is an interpretation of the law.
Nice, thank you very much. And maybe a very good bridge to that is, Tim, could you explain to everyone and to understand the exact process, like in a few words, when it comes to access to justice, how it works with demarcation, patrol, the relationship and actions with the justice system?
So I was doing scientific research from 2010 to 2016 about conflicts over natural resources, basically conflicts over deforestation. And 90% of the deforestation is illegal. So, and the goal was, it was funded by the Netherlands Organization for Scientific Research, to reduce the conflicts. And I thought, wow, there's all these illegalities, and what they really need, the threatened forest communities, is access to justice, to the justice system, to the rule of law. Yeah. And instead of round tables, which the funder originally wanted. So no, so the most trustworthy institutions and actors in Brazil are the public prosecutors. So we had a focus, and I said, so we organized meetings so that they could meet the threatened forest communities, public prosecutors, to get access to justice. Yeah. So, and it was also based on the study, a book, quite a known book, Why Nations Fail. Why are certain countries successful, like the Netherlands, for example, is supposed to be successful, and other countries are so-called failed states. Why? What is the difference? And the difference, according to this book, Why Nations Fail, it's institutions, inclusive institutions. For example, if there's a corrupt politician, will the public prosecutors go after him or not? And in Brazil, the judiciary is independent, so this really was possible to develop this strategy.
Yeah. So I think it's good to know that 90% is illegal, what's currently happening, and the way to approach it is legally. So a little microphone feed. Okay. I think we'll be okay. Chief Data, I'm going to go straight to you right now, which is, can you explain a little bit what happens when you come across illegal activity in your area? Because just so you all know, it is seriously dangerous when they actually have to try to combat illegal activity. So maybe you can explain a little bit about, with the Guardians team, when you've had to stop or remove illegal activity.
Então, essas atividades a gente realiza.
These activities, we undertake them.
Usando o material que a gente conseguiu através do fosse da floresta.
Using the materials, the equipment you obtained from the forest forces, their work.
Que é o uso do GPS, o uso das máquinas fotográficas.
That's the use of GPS, the photo cameras with a GPS equipped.
Nesse momento a gente faz identificação e a identificação do problema, e isso é a primeira coisa. A segunda coisa, a gente chama o agressor, bota ele para sentar e conversar com ele.
Yeah, we identify the problem, see what is happening, and then we invite the perpetrator to talk with them for a dialogue.
Não é um trabalho fácil, mas a gente tenta, de uma forma ou de outra, tentando conscientizar que isso é trabalhar prevenção e educação. E muitas das vezes a gente consegue.
It is not an easy work. It's time consuming, but it's about prevention and education. Right. But most of the time we can achieve that.
So just realizing that the way they approach this is that not to kind of go just battle straight against it, but it's to actually have the conversation. To say, hey, we want to understand, we want to educate. And after long conversations, at least this is what I've understood as well, to get them to say, oh, wait a second, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, to get them to that point. And again, I know this is kind of weird. I just told you about my life growing up here in this city, but when I hear about this approach, I think such a beautiful, peaceful, but a strong approach towards trying to actually, stop deforestation. Tim, can you explain the connection between, the relation between the Amazon region and here in Europe?
The first time I arrived in Santarém, the municipality where he lives, was in 2003. And to my big surprise, I arrived after 2 days on the boat. I arrived in the harbor of Santarém, and Cargill was just building its the first soy export port in the Amazon, with also destination, the Netherlands and Europe. But also I saw huge piles of timber, of logged, sawn wood. And to my big surprise, Flushing in the Netherlands was the main destination, a lot of this timber. And I also looked, are there any, FSC, but no certifications, no, just the destinations. And some of them were going to Spain, to the UK. But Flushing was really the #1 destination. And I'm born in Middelburg, at 10 kilometers, so it was kind of shocked. So just been 2 days on, and it's all going to the
You're in the
Netherlands.
middle of nowhere, and
yes.
then suddenly you see a stamp of Flushing, you're like, wait a second, how did that go?
And then the soy, I mean, a lot of the soy in his area, the soy is the main cause of deforestation. In Genoa, it's more cattle, but in the lower Amazon, it's mainly soy. Yeah. And a lot of it goes to the Netherlands. And Netherlands is the first destination in Europe. So it is a direct, so there's soy ships of over 100 meters long, totally loaded, they go directly to the Netherlands.
Yeah, so that's just, I'm sorry, that's insane if you think about it. Like all that soy that's being produced there comes, a lot of the biggest export from there, import from us, is going to the Netherlands.
Yes, and I should add that also a lot of banks, all the major banks, the major pension funds, fund companies like the meat and soy companies, the same companies that are often associated with deforestation. So there's money coming from the Netherlands going into these sectors that drive deforestation, mainly cattle and soy, and the Netherlands is a big buyer of the product. So the Netherlands is really contributing to the deforestation.
Yeah, it kind of shows how much we're not aware of, right, of what's actually happening when it comes to deforestation. A question for both of you. Now, when I say the word science, by the way, I want everyone to know science actually means criminology here. Maybe good to realize that we're approaching this challenge in a different way. Can you share the importance of indigenous knowledge and science being integrated together? So whoever wants to start.
Então, o conhecimento indígena, ele vem por conta que nós temos todo o saber e o controle de transmissão da floresta.
The indigenous knowledge comes from the fact that we have this long-term knowledge and ways of working with the forest for generations.
Além da floresta, a própria lua. E eu quero dizer para todos aqui que ainda não viu ontem, saia ali fora e veja que ela já deve estar quase indo embora. Lua nova, lua muito boa para nós.
Beyond the forest, there is also the role of the moon. And he's inviting everybody who still did not check out the moon yesterday, that go out after the event and take a look outside because it's beautiful.
Tim, what about you?
Well, 90% of the deforestation is illegal. Also, around 90% of the logging is illegal, so it's crime. And I thought, okay, I was doing this research, and I'm a criminologist, and I thought many NGOs doing interventions in the Amazon are biologists, and I thought, I'm a criminologist. You need a criminologist, it's crime. So I thought a lot about this, and so you should really use criminology and crime science to reduce this. And I started talking 10 years ago with public prosecutors, and I was thinking of the GPS. And I said, I'm thinking of introducing GPS cameras into the hotspots of forest crime in the interior and giving to the communities. Would it be any help to you? And he said, oh no, actually we, the prosecutors, we need, and also in court, we need the GPS location. Without the GPS location, we cannot do anything. So basically, and being in a lot of contact with public prosecutors, I discovered, hey, they really want the same thing basically as the indigenous. The prosecutors want to defend the constitution in which the indigenous have territorial rights, and the indigenous want to protect the forest. So we can combine them, connect them through the GPS cameras, and by applying crime science and criminology. And so these cameras help to detect forest crimes in the GPS location. So it helps the rule of law. So the public prosecutors and the federal police are really happy about it. It's good for the indigenous. Well, and eventually it's good for everyone. But the main goal is prevention. It's crime prevention. But crime prevention is the best intervention.
So knowing and realizing that there's two things happening here. There's indigenous wisdom about how to go about this. And on the other side, you have technology and criminology that can actually combat it. One of my last questions before I kind of pop it open to the audience here that might want to ask a question as well, which is, we've heard about the Treesistance vision and the expansion that Thomas just told us about. What is coming up in 2023 and 2024 that we should all know about?
So, I started working with
I think the mic's off. being tweaked. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I heard him speak for the first time in 2010, and you know, he was involved in the project, the green criminology project that I was doing, and then in 2015 I gave him the first camera. And in 2016, they managed to kick out all the logging companies out of his territory because they were all operating illegally. And I started working with another territory, the Plan Alto-Munduruku, and they are in the process of demarcation. And it's actually the only indigenous community that applied for indigenous territory during the Bolsonaro government. So also supporting this group. Then we supporting 2 other indigenous groups in Acre and also one in the municipality of Belterra. So Forced Forces was already supporting 4. Now with the merging and working together with Sinchi, and this year he will give more trainings this year, and now we are expanding. So I will ask Chief Dada to explain more. But so we are, we're not only working with Chief Dada, we are already working in different territories, and now we're expanding to even more territories, and he will expand the best practice to other territories. And so we both get requests, mostly he of course, because he's in the Amazon. So a lot of other indigenous territories go to him and said, hey, we want to have a training, we want to do the same thing as you.
Does Chief Dada want to add anything? Yeah, go ahead.
Não quero agradecer por conta da presença dos dois, os dois grandes guerreiros.
I don't want to be grateful only because the 2 of them are here.
Por estarem presentes aqui, Tim e Tom.
Because we have both here, Tim and Tom. So I'm not saying thank you just because they are here.
A coragem que esses dois têm, eles têm mais coragem que o próprio Ministério do Meio Ambiente.
The courage that these 2 guys have, they have more courage than the Ministry of Environment in Brazil.
Porque trabalhar junto com um cacique que defende a floresta, que é ameaçado, que é perseguido, não é fácil.
Because working together with a chief from the forest who is threatened, being persecuted by these threats, and so that's not an easy job.
Mas enfim, já fizemos 3 formações e vamos fazer mais 6. Então esse ano nós completamos 9 formações de grupos de guardião da floresta.
We already did 3 trainings and we'll do another 6 trainings, so we'll complete a total of 9 trainings this year.
Yeah, so 9 territories in total. Yeah.
9 territórios diferentes?
Yeah. Sim, 9 territórios diferentes com etnia diferente. Inclusive agora a gente vai trabalhar com 2 territórios, um é do Alto Tapajós, que é 1.500.000 hectares. Então, muito grande, mas a gente vai lá.
It's 9 different territories from 9 different ethnic groups. So, if I'm not wrong, Upper Tapajós,
Upper Tapajós, there's the Munduruku, and they asked our help, and it's a territory of 1.5 million hectares. So it's a huge territory.
That's a lot of land. Yeah.
E próximo ano, não?
E próximo ano a gente vai expandir. Além nós já estamos trabalhando hoje com 6 municípios, 2 estados, e próximo ano que vem a gente vai expandir para mais estados, porque a gente tem uma agenda toda assim de pedido de formação de grupo de vigilante e guardião da floresta.
So to be expanded next year, they're working now with 6 municipalities in 2 states. Brazilian states, you know, they're huge. So next year to be a further expansion.
Yeah, one more thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Toda vez que alguém coloca 1 centavo na SINGS e 50 centavos na fosse, esse dinheiro chega até nós e nós vamos lá e faz a formação com os indígenas que estão lá direto. Nós vamos na base.
Saying that every time somebody gives 50 cents to Sinchi or to Treesistance, former forest forces, this money really reaches them and to do this groundwork. Is reinforcing that this is actually the case.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, applause. Yeah. Can the lights go up so I can so I know where I'm throwing? Anybody who has a question? So just real quick about this, I just want you also to know, we're going to talk about donations in a bit, but it goes directly to the forest forces. But does anyone at this moment have a question that they'd like to ask? Yep. I'm going to throw it. Here it comes. It's soft, so it shouldn't hurt. Here we go. Oh, nice catch. Yeah. You have to speak into it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Hello.
It's a mic.
For Tim, I had a question.
Yeah.
you were talking about the illegality of logging in all these places, and then you mentioned the Netherlands, and I was wondering what part of the process is illegal? Where can we call out countries like the Netherlands for logging in Brazil? How, in your position, can you see that process and see what's illegal, and then when it becomes legal or fair trade or whatever, when it's here, if that makes sense?
So like a little bit in the supply chain from beginning to end, where's the part that we can intervene? Is that also?
Basically.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah. Well, like I said, in general, the public prosecutors generally say that 90% of the logging is illegal. You have the least chance of illegality if you have certified wood, and then generally FSC is the best one. But it's even then, even the best one, the golden standard FSC, has risk of illegality. And there's still a lot of wood that's not certified. So of course, the highest risk of illegalities are non-certified wood, and there's still a lot of non-certified wood. But to give an example, which happened really in his area, just behind the area, there was 2 years ago, the Brazilian Environment Minister Salles had to resign on the order of the Federal Supreme Court. So this is, again, the proof of the independent judiciary. The Federal Supreme Court says the Minister of Environment, you have to resign. So he resigned, had to give his phone and also passport. But this was related to a seized quantity of illegal timber of 130,000 cubic meters. It's difficult to imagine, but it was a transport of 6,400 trucks to transport all this illegal timber. So it was seized by the police. It was a huge problem just to put it somewhere, you know. And then the environment minister came with a small airplane, really just a few kilometers, really nearby Maró indigenous territory. He met the timber traders, timber company with a very bad reputation in the area. He said, oh, they were hard people, and he said, you know, let's export this wood. So it was exported to the United States and to Europe. So it's a fact that it was illegal. Interestingly, the law enforcement in the US discovered that it was illegal. They didn't have the right paperwork. And they contacted the federal police, and then it led eventually to the intervention of the Federal Supreme Court. So, but interestingly, all the illegal timber from the same quantity also went to Europe, to 6 or 7 European countries, and not one of these European countries discovered that it was illegal. So this shows that the American law enforcement system, the customs, is better than in Europe.
Yeah, and
so it arrived on the market.
If I may, but then I think your question, if I'm asking, is what can you specifically do coming from the Netherlands? Okay, maybe not. Right, yeah. Just at least in the supply chain, like, I mean, coming from those territories to here, where's an intervention possible?
But it is difficult. With wood, it's difficult to show sometimes the illegality. But I think with the Netherlands, the strongest connection is with the soy. Especially if you think, okay, this cattle, there was recently an article in the newspaper, NRC, about illegal meat arriving on the Dutch market, actually from illegally deforested meat. But I think with the Netherlands, because the Netherlands has the highest density of cattle in Europe, in whole of Europe. And the Netherlands doesn't have the space for all this cattle feed, so basically the Netherlands has an extra Netherlands in Brazil where all the soy grows for all the animals. So I think if you want to reduce the Dutch impact, so to speak, I think it has to do with the cattle feed. That's really where it's the biggest impact.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, you can either throw it back or you can throw it to the next question. Anybody, question? Yeah, you can. That's a sort of a shorter throw. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Since I'm in Brazilian, can I ask my question in Portuguese for Cacique Dada?
Yeah, sure, if it can be translated for us as well, but I mean...
yes, in respect of Cacique Dada, I prefer to speak in Portuguese.
Yes, go ahead.
Oi, Cacique Dada. Eu gostaria de saber de você se depois do governo Bolsonaro, que legitimou esses grileiros, madeireiros, tudo que é de pior na Amazônia, se você se sentiu mais ameaçado, seu trabalho foi dificultado por isso, e se teve mais perigo no seu dia a dia.
He's asking if during the Bolsonaro government that there was, let's say, government motivation for illegal deforestation. So he's asking if it was harder for Cacique Dada to deal with that kind of situation.
Então, o nosso território, na verdade, não foi só o nosso território, foi todos os territórios da Amazônia. Eles sofreram a grande perseguição por conta que ele estava facilitando o projeto de manejo e todos os projetos, porque para ele era desenvolvimento.
It wasn't only their territory that suffered from this, it was all the territories in the Amazon that were suffering this pressure from deforestation that was motivated by the government.
e teve muita exploração por conta que ele facilitava isso, né? Só que aí todos os madeireiros, sojeiros, garimpeiros e pecuaristas, eles estavam confiantes que o Bolsonaro ia ser reeleito, e na verdade não foi reeleito, e agora ele está fazendo ao contrário, essa turma que está lá explorando.
Yeah, there was a lot of, it was motivated by the government, therefore it happened because people thought that they would not get caught with that in the end of the day, or even in a next government. And that's not happening because there is being some crackdown, especially for the gold miners.
Now there's a little bit more justification and ruling for those people that wasn't there before. Thank you for your question. Maybe one, just taking with the time. How are we in terms of time? Huh? Okay. So do we have time for one last question? Yeah, we do. Okay. One last question. Behind you. You're making it very easy. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me? So just one more question about the future with the coming 3 years with this new government. Do you feel more positive? Do you feel you do your work better now? Are you seeing some change?
Preparado para fazer o seu trabalho agora com essa situação diferente?
Eu acredito assim, preparado a gente está, né? Eu agradeço muito a parceria que a gente fez com os dois movimentos, né? Sings e Force.
Prepared, we are well prepared. He appreciates and acknowledges the value of this partnership with Sing and Forest Forces.
E todos que apoiam as duas, né? Então, para nós é muito viável porque a gente vai ter mais material suficiente para nós desenvolver o trabalho, principalmente recursos, porque a distância de um território para o outro é muito distante, é muita água, é muita terra, muita floresta, então tudo é um pouco mais difícil.
We appreciate the support from everybody, from donations and all, because this really being, let's say, transferred into material equipment for us to reach, because there are territories very far away, and those are very hard to reach and therefore more costly than to do the work in their own territory only.
Mas nós vamos mostrar para a sociedade brasileira, a sociedade amazônica e para a sociedade que está em volta holandesa, que é possível sim a gente fazer proteção da floresta, mesmo a gente está quase perdendo a última gota, né, a ser pingado, mas é possível a gente recuperar essas gotas que foram derramadas.
And we're going to prove to the Brazilian society, the Amazonian society, and even this society from the Netherlands that somehow is related to that context, as we saw, that we can revert the situation. Even when we are on this last drop, we'll revert that.
Yeah. So I want to actually thank you for your question, and all of you for your questions as well. I think it's also good to realize is that while this is a problem or an issue or challenge for all of us, and we should actually all feel responsible. Many of us, maybe living here in Amsterdam, we go back to our homes, maybe it's nicely cool, you just got yourself an airco, but in a way, the airco for the whole planet is happening right there. It's an interesting metaphor. But I think that's something good to realize, that if we don't support that, then if I think about the future generations, I'm not sure how much hotter this world can get. All right, we're going to go with one last question, and I have a question actually for Chief Dada, which is, a lot of the things that I at least learned from the indigenous people is about these kind of rituals that you have. Do you have, are there any like ceremonies, rituals, songs? I've heard the word surara been shared a few times. What does it mean? And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Então, contar a história do nosso povo, ela é uma história que é passada de geração para geração, e isso veio desde nossos ancestrais, desde meus bisavós.
To tell the history of our people is something that have been passed from generation to generation, that comes from our ancestors, from our great-great-great-grandparents.
O conhecimento pela floresta, o conhecimento pelo canto, o conhecimento pela reza e o conhecimento pelo respeito à Mãe Terra e à floresta, que é a nossa casa.
The knowledge about the forests that goes through their singings, and above all, the knowledge about the forest itself, that is their house. So how to live in this.
E a gente, isso é passado não somente numa conversa, mas é desse jeito aqui. Todos podem levantar.
It is not done through a conversation. We do it like this, so please stand up.
Peço que todos possam segurar na mão do irmão, da irmã, do parceiro, do colega que está do lado e passar essa energia positiva.
I ask everybody to hold the hand from the person beside you, from the brother and the sister beside you.
Para que essa energia positiva possa ser comunicado para todos nós.
So this energy can be passed through all of us.
Okay. É simples, ó. É só um pé para trás, o direito.
It is very simple. One foot
e o esquerdo
behind
na frente.
The right foot.
E fazer isso aqui, ó.
And stamp.
Bora, todo mundo junto.
And go and everybody goes back together.
Quando a gente está fazendo isso, nós estamos acordando a nossa Mãe Terra.
When we are doing this, we are waking up the Mother Earth.
Eu vou falando, você repete no final.
I will say, you repeat. Yeah.
Surara, 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 porarie.
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 Todo mundo fazendo isso aqui. Surara!
Surara!
Surara! Surara! É assim que ensina de geração para geração.
That's how we teach from generation to generation.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So, if you weren't warm enough yet, you should be now. Thank you. Oh, thank you. All right. If I could have a black slide for a moment, or you can flip to the next, and then the black one. Yeah, perfect. I want you all to do something for me. I want you all, just for a moment, after everything you've heard today, I know you've heard quite a lot of information on a warm Thursday evening in this room. I want you all, whether you want to or not, you can close your eyes, but I want you to think about 3 questions. The first question I'm going to ask you is, do I care enough to do something? You can be really honest with yourself, like brutally honest. Do I actually care enough? Or in my translated language, do I give a shit? Do I care enough to do something? The second question is, what can I do about it? And think creatively with a few things you've heard. We'll give you a few ideas, but think about something. Can I do something about it? Or what can I do about it? And the last question is, and I want you to be even more honest with yourself now, what will I do about it? If you can pop open the slide again, next one. Yeah, there's a few things you can do actively. This shouldn't take too much effort, relatively amount of effort. Firstly, you can follow, like, and share the Treesistance social media channels and pages. And if there's anything you want to share tonight, please do tag whoever and everyone so that we can share it all over the place. LinkedIn, Instagram, we've just been whispered, thank you. Become a monthly donor, and just so you know that the donations go straight to the forest forces. It's very essential for you to know that. And just also good to know that when you do become a member, you give a monthly donation, that it goes to the forest guardians, and they risk their life, as you just heard, to protect the forests that are actually taking care of us as well, which is, I don't know, I think it's good to keep that in mind. Connect and engage your network, so introduce us to your networks in any way you have. Everyone has a poster underneath their seat, or on their seat, or you've just had it. Little, it's like Oprah, you know, everyone has one under their seat. So you can use it, you put it somewhere like in your office or somewhere that people can see it, and then when they ask you about it, you can share with them, yes, I was at an event about Treesistance, let me tell you more. Thank you, it's being showcased, thank you, thank you. Share your skills and join our ranks. So everyone here has a skill that they can actually share. We work a lot with collaborations. So if you feel like, hey, I'm a designer or I have another skill that I could share, that would be great, because the way we have been able to work is with collaborations. And also, of course, with philanthropists, people that feel like, hey, I want to put my resources to a good place. This is a good place to start. And of course, anybody individually that says, I'd like to contribute, that we're open and welcome to that. You have 2 QR codes. There's one QR code on the, so we can go to the next slide. There's one QR code that is on the flyer, I think. Yeah, can I just have this one? This one? This one is to register for the survey. Oh, sorry, no. Oh, that's, sorry. Woo. This is for donations. That's for the survey, so you can scan that for the survey. Thank you for that correction. One more thing before we wrap this all up for tonight. There's more we're gonna have food and drinks, but that's gonna be explained in a bit. I'm gonna ask Thomas to come up to share a few things before we close this all up. Go ahead, Thomas.
So, thanks, Salman. So, I just wanted to add a couple of points to what Salman's just shared. We actually have a program where if you donate 20 euros a month, this 20 euros actually pays the conservation fee for one of the forest guardians to go out and patrol. You have to understand these guardians are doing this for the protection of the forest. They are not, or in the past have not been paid for this to risk their lives. So this 20 euros, which if you can afford to donate every month, 100% of that reaches directly someone within the community. Secondly, the reason what we've been able to expand so quickly this year with the territories which are being trained and new forest guardians, most of that has actually come from private sponsorship with businesses, corporations and brands. So if you are in a position where you're able to influence where you work, we'd love to have these conversations with you. So we have one little surprise to share, but before I do, I did want to just get all of the Treesistance team down to the stage, because there's been blood, sweat and tears which have gone into this over the last 6 months, and I think they all deserve a round of applause and some recognition for the amazing work they've done. Okay. And trust me, this is just the start. We really are just getting started. We talked a little bit earlier about disruptive ideas and doing things differently. You might have noticed a couple of us are wearing some snazzy shoelaces. These actually are the graphics from the Brari people, from Dada's community, which actually signifies resistance. So we're looking to develop this project at the moment. And another one, you've probably noticed this beautiful cocktail bar to the right. We're about to launch our very own cocktail. Doesn't seem like the normal way to go about things, but it was, whose idea was it? It was yours, actually. Oh, was it? Okay. Well, I like a drink. So,
the shoelaces were Maria's.
Yeah, they're Maria's, yeah. So the cocktail idea we shared anyway. I don't know if it was me, but I decided to send a message to the most famous mixologist in Brazil, and guess what? He responded straight away. So we're launching our very own cocktail. We're going to show you a promo video in a minute to introduce you to this cocktail, both alcoholic and there is non-alcoholic version. And of course, the idea behind this is not just to enjoy a drink, but to raise visibility, to work with HoReCa, hotels, restaurants and bars, raise visibility in different communities, and of course, raise funds. So isn't it great to enjoy a drink with friends while also supporting the rainforest? So now, perhaps we could roll the intro.
Olá, eu sou Márcio Silva, bartender brasileiro com mais de 20 anos de experiência. Estou há 5 anos consecutivos na lista das 100 pessoas mais importantes da indústria mundial de bares. E também aqui no Brasil, eu apresento o programa Bar Aberto. Estou aqui celebrando com vocês o lançamento do movimento Treesistance. E para isso, elaborei um coquetel incrível para vocês, o Pindorama. Foi um grande desafio encontrar ingredientes que pudesse trazer todo o frescor a esse ingrediente e que representasse realmente as raízes do Brasil. E por que Pindorama? Pindorama é o nome dado pelos povos nativos à terra que nós chamamos hoje de Brasil. E para representar isso, nada mais do que o ingrediente chamado urucum. Até porque o urucum é o símbolo de resistência pelos povos nativos. Eles pintam o corpo e isso vai trazer toda a representatividade para esse coquetel. Para elaborar esse coquetel, eu vou precisar de uma coqueteleira, 25 ml de suco natural de limão Tahiti, 30 ml de suco natural de abacaxi, 15 ml de xarope de amêndoa, 50 ml de cachaça com infusão de urucum, bastante gelo, fecha a coqueteleira. Um copo baixo com muito gelo para fazer uma coagem. E para finalizar, 7 lances de bitter aromático. Mexe o coquetel com uma colher longa e eu guarneço o coquetel com um ramo de hortelã. E aqui eu apresento o Pindorama. Saúde!
Like, ooh, I could, ooh. Everyone's like, ooh, I could do with a very good cold drink right now. Yeah, right. So we're wrapping things up for tonight. There's a few things that you can do that we've already said that you could do. I hope you've had an evening to get a lot more insight as to what Treesistance is about, where it is right now, where it's going. You've been incredible just being here and present and yeah, through all the talking and the warmth and whatnot, but most of all, I hope that you've at least been inspired to say, okay, there's something I can do. There's food over there, there's traditional Brazilian food there. The bar is open, that's on you though. We only could get the tab until 7 o'clock, but the cocktails, there's limited amount, but there's both alcoholic and non-alcoholic ones, so feel free to get one. Make a photo at the wall there if you want to. Please talk to any of the Treesistance team members if you want to ask any questions. And I'd say happy Rainforest Day. Thank you for being here. And that was it for tonight. Beautiful. All right, that's it.